Hey guys, how's it going? It's time for another retro gadget review. And first, I have the Palm Treo 650. This phone is pretty interesting. It's one of the pre-iPhone smartphones, I guess, to come out. It came out way back in 2004. I think this is one of my oldest smartphones. I think it came out around that time. Palm OS was all the rage, as was Windows Mobile. So those were your basic, and Blackberry, of course. Those were your basic smartphone operating systems, as well as Symbian from Nokia. So before the pre-iPhone era, basically had those mobile operating systems as the dominant operating systems. So Windows Mobile, Palm OS, Symbian, and Blackberry OS. And this one is one of my earlier smartphones, I guess. Palm One, I guess that was the name of Palm back then. The Treo is the name of the series. The Treo is actually one of the first advertisements I saw back in the day when smartphones first came out. The Treo, I think, was the first smartphone that I saw in the advertisements. And remember handspring, like the Palm Pilots, and there was also the handspring visors and stuff. They were all being advertised. I remember seeing the Treo on the magazines back in the day, or the advertisements back in the day. We get the flyers, from the Best Buy or Radio Shack back in the day, and you would find these on these flyers. And I was like, wow, this is not only a PDA, it's also a phone too. I can see the antenna right here. This is a legacy of the old school style smartphones, or cell phones. I mean, the old school style cell phones had these antennas sticking out, right? And yeah, I was like, wow, this is a phone. It definitely is a phone because it has the the antenna on it. And it's also like a Palm Pilot because it has the Palm Pilot stuff here. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Removable battery back here, speaker right here. Then you have a camera. I think this is just a VGA camera. I mean, that's what I expect because all the phones back then wouldn't have more than a VGA camera, or 1.3 megapixel at best. Then you have the volume rocker here, probably a mute button there. Yep, you have the navigational buttons here. Then you have the turn on button, / decline call, get the call, home button, calendar button, mail button, and no, this is the menu button, sorry. This is the calendar / clock button. And then you have the QWERTY keyboard here, pretty common for the day. The Motorola Q, I think, is another smartphone that I've showed you that kind of has this kind of style and came out around the same time. And yeah, you have the mini phone pad here. And you have proprietary connector. You won't see any micro USBs or whatever from phones around this time. They all have their own proprietary connectors, which kind of sucks. Because if you lose one of these connectors, you pretty much have to get a new one. From Palm or from eBay, basically, these days. Then you have the headphone jack, something that you won't find on some smartphones these days, right? iPhone 7. And top here you will find the volume mute button right here. This is the volume mute. Yeah, that's a volume mute, which means that this must be used for something else, I guess. Muting the applications, or I don't know, something else. Oh, this is a SIM card slot, right? Yeah, this is not the nano SIM. This is the mini SIM or something. The slightly larger slim SIM back in the day. I think this is an infrared port. Yeah, and this. Okay, this must be a full-size SD card slot. Yep. Imagine that, a full-size SD card slot on a smartphone. You don't see that common these days. You always have micro SD card slots. Full-size SD card slot. Screen is this is a 320 by 320 2.4-inch screen, which is considered a standard screen size for smartphones back in the day. The iPhone originally came out with a 3.5-inch screen, and that was considered a big screen size. And these days we see 3.5 inch was like, wow, that's tiny, right? We have like 5.5 inch, 5.7 inch. Look at this, guys, 2.4 inches. Okay, next I have the Samsung D900, also known as the Black Carbon. And reason I have this phone, it doesn't seem like a remarkable phone in many ways. It's just a slider phone from the mid 2000s. It's from 2006-ish, I think. Yeah. This is for my nostalgic purposes. I collect these items because I think they have a significant value or is sentimental value. Whereas with the Palm Treo is more of a historical value thing. I have this one because it's actually my first phone in university. So I got this phone in university. It's pretty much my first phone. I got my first phone when I was 17-ish, or around 17-ish, almost 18-ish. And you have to remember back, like teenagers back then didn't really use phones because it wasn't that common for a teenager to have a phone back in the mid 2000s. Now it's like common every day. Everyone has a phone, but back then it wasn't that common. And this was my first phone I got when I went to university. A Samsung D900 black carbon. Came out. I think I used this around 2006 or 2007-ish. But yeah, you have. Actually, I think I can actually start this up. Can I? I think it's just. Oh well. If I can't start it up, then it's not a big deal. But yeah, I guess I can't. I have to charge it. Yeah, oh well. Anyways, the menu is just the basic Samsung menu, anything, nothing much to see there. It's just the old school menu. You have to text using like this style of texting, you know, press 3 times for a letter, press 2 times for a letter, press 3 times. This is the old school way of texting people. You know, it must be hard for children or kids to understand these days how you would text using a keyboard like this. But back in the day, you had to text people like like this. It's like, hey, space, how's it go? You know, like you had to text people like that. Can you imagine like texting people like that these days? But yeah, back in the day in university, that's how we texted people. And you would slide up to take the call, slide down to decline the call. Very, very simple buttons that are here, navigation and everything. Context buttons right here. Okay, you also had the MP3 player on it. This is actually one of the slimmest phones when it came out at the time. Volume rocker switch right here. This is a micro SD card slot right here. Then you have a removable battery. And let's see, and then on the side here, you had the dedicated camera button right here, camera shutter button, and you have the headphone slash connector, USB connector to connect to your computer, or you connect your proprietary headphones, proprietary earphones to it. Yeah, Samsung actually. So this is not like a 3.5 millimeter. It's not like a standard headphone connector jack, which I really didn't like back then because, you know, I couldn't use all my headphones and stuff. I had to use Samsung's phones with it. I have Samsung's earphones. They have these proprietary earphones you had to connect with this thing, which is really annoying. But to be sure, I didn't use this as my main MP3 player device anyways. I had my Creative Zen back then, so I mostly used that. This was just my phone. You know, this is back in the days when a phone was just a phone, and that's all it did. I mean, it could do other things. This could play games. It could play MP3s. It could play that, but you just wouldn't do it because it wasn't that good. Like, it was very, very basic games. The MP3 player function wasn't that great. You would use separate devices for that. You would use like an iPod or a Creative or iRiver, whatever have you, Koans, you know, whatever MP3 players you had back then, you would use it separately, right? Because this phone wasn't that good at that. This also had a 3.5, is it 3.2? Yeah, no, it's just 3.0. I misremembered that. But 3.0 autofocus, which is this is a pretty major feature back in the day when autofocus wasn't common. 3.0 self-portrait mirror, and yeah, that's the camera right there. This hasn't, the camera look has not changed actually back then to now. I think these days you would see this and you would not know how many megapixels it is because it looks exactly the same. But the megapixels, the cameras obviously have gotten a lot better these days, but the look has stayed pretty much the same. The flash right there, 3.2 megapixels. This is really good back in the day. Back in the day, you had like the Razr, you know, Motorola Razrs and stuff. They had the VGA cameras. Then you had some phones with 1.3 megapixel. 3 megapixels in 2006 and 2007 was considered top tier. I mean, it wasn't until the Nokia N95 came out that phone pushed like the megapixel count to like 5 or whatever. That was like the best camera phone back then. The original iPhone, if you guys don't remember, came out with only a 2 megapixel camera. It didn't have any kind of features on it whatsoever. No autofocus, nothing. It was just a 2.0 megapixel camera with fixed focus, and that was it. And so this one was better than the iPhone, than the first iPhone, at least camera-wise, you know? Camera-wise, this is actually better than the first iPhone, and it came out a little bit before the iPhone did. that's it. Samsung D900 black carbon, 2.1 inch screen, by the way, guys. How's that for small? Okay, Samsung Alias 2. This one came out around 2009, I think. Shown you guys this one in the previous video before, but I showed it as mostly a flip phone because you normally just use it as a flip phone here. It has a special E-ink keyboard. Really cool. This actually changes depending on what application you're using. Normally it's this keypad thing. If you like switch to landscape mode, this will actually change to a QWERTY keyboard. You have the standard micro SD card slot here, home button, power button right there. Down the side you have, you have the Samsung proprietary port that you saw on my D900. So there, it's here as well. Volume buttons. I think this is a, what does it look like? Talk button or whatever. Oh, this one does have a 3.5. Okay, that makes it better than my D900 with audio. 3.5 millimeter. Finally, Samsung got it. All right. I think this looks like it has a speaking voice icon on it. I think it's like some kind of talk mute button or something on it. All right. Anyways, this one also removable battery. Camera is on the front of the device because when you flip it, it's actually on the back. That's how flip phones work. And so like this one, you can actually switch into landscape mode. That's what I wanted to show you guys. Like you can play it in this mode, and then this turns into a QWERTY keyboard, and then you can just type whatever, use your primitive WAP browser, whatever they had on these phones back then. Like no one would really use these, the baby web or whatever Steve Jobs called it. I mean, that was totally it. Like you would just never use these phones for surfing the web back then. I never used it for surfing the web. It was horrible. It was seeing just plain text HTML, no rich HTML at all, and it was terrible. It was really slow and everything. So you would never surf the web on these devices, but you know, anyways, for texting or something, you would have a full QWERTY keyboard here, text to your friend, or you can just take a call here and then press some numpad here. So that's Samsung Alias 2. All right, next up I have 2012 Motorola Photon Q, 4.3 megapixels. Here, I mean 4.3 inch screen. What am I doing megapixels? 4.3 inch screen there. This was like 240 by 320 by 240. I think this resolution should be a lot higher. It's 2012. This one should be running Android 4.1 or 4.2-ish, I think. Anyways, the reason I have this one is because it's one of the last Android devices with a slide-out keyboard, physical keyboard like this. I know the Blackberry Priv has it, but that's kind of an exception. I would say this is one of the last devices that commonly use this slide-out keyboard here. I showed you guys the T-Mobile G1, the HTC Dream. The first Android phone, you know, had this physical keyboard. I think this is one of the last of the trend, you know, to have the physical keyboards. So that's why I have the Motorola Photon Q. The Motorola Droid 4 is another one that came out at the same time. Very similar phones in a way. This is the 8 megapixel camera. How far we have come in just 4 years. And this is HDR 1080p. We went from 3 megapixels to 8 megapixels here. The Palm Treo is a VGA camera. Actually, this is about 8 years difference, right? 6, 7, 8, yeah. In 8 years, we went from VGA camera to 8 megapixel camera. And now we have the Google Pixels and iPhone 7 with their fancy cameras. They're probably better than a lot of point and shoots now. Yeah, that's it. Headphone jack, power button, I think, and standard. We have standard ports now. Micro USB. We have 2 micro USBs for some reason. I'm not sure why. What's this one for? 8. Oh, sorry, it's not micro USB. It's 8 micro HDMI. I didn't expect to have a micro HDMI on this phone. Yeah, that's cool. Micro USB, micro HDMI on this phone. That's neat. Volume rockers here. I think this might be a camera button. This is probably the micro SD, I'm thinking. Yep. Yep, the micro SD. Okay. Anyways, that's it. Motorola Photon Q from 2012. Then we have the Lenovo. This is the A588. Lenovo A588. And from, I believe, last year. This is actually a really recent phone. The reason I have this phone is because you guys saw my maybe Samsung Galaxy Golden I reviewed in a previous video. The reason why I have this phone is because it's an Android phone that's also a flip phone, which is pretty cool. And this front here is a screen. Looks like a premium feeling back. A lot of you might not know that Lenovo makes phones. It does. Lenovo makes everything. And yeah, you flip it open, and this is actually an Android screen. It runs Android 5.1, which is pretty cool, and it's relatively modern. It's new. We have these big style keys here. Yeah, I think this is mostly for, I think mostly old people use these type of phones now, but some people like in Japan like flip phones still, and I still like flip phones just for collecting purposes. But I wouldn't mind using a flip phone just for novelty reasons sometimes, I guess. People would be asking like, wow, man, is that a flip phone? Yeah, it's a flip phone from last year that runs Android. That's cool, right? Camera right here. It's a selfie camera. That's how you know that's how you know this phone is modern. Selfie camera. All right, and back, you have a back button and home button. Menu is same as other flip phones. This keyboard's totally flat. It's really cool. It's kind of like the Motorola Razr in that sense. Headphone jack right here. Volume rockers, and the side here we have dedicate button here, dedicate button right here, probably for camera, I think. Micro USB for charging. That's pretty much it. It's a flip phone, a very modern flip phone that runs Android, which is cool. All right, then we have the Blackberry Silver Edition. I just want to box this for you guys. I wanted to get the Silver Edition because we know that now that BlackBerry stopped producing devices, and this is pretty much the last hurrah here. I didn't like the Priv that much. This was pretty much the very last BlackBerry OS device, and the BlackBerry Passport is very well received. A lot of people liked it. I liked it. Still a very good device. I just wish it had more apps and stuff. Very premium feeling back on the Silver Edition here. This is a special edition of the Passport. This 13 megapixel camera. Yep, f2.0. It's got image stabilization on it. Your SD card and SIM goes here, micro SD and nano SIM. And yeah, Passport came out 2014, so 2 years ago. This one, special edition, came out last year sometime, I believe, early last year. Then you got headphone jack right here. Then this is the power button and speaker system, everything. And yeah, it is just the Passport. There's nothing totally different. On the inside, it's totally the same. Totally same specs and everything. Very fast. You know, 4.5-inch square screen here. Really nice. Really nice for viewing stuff because you can use this QWERTY keyboard for scrolling and stuff, which is what I really like about it. Stereo speakers, micro USB at the bottom. Very nice physical keyboard. BlackBerry is the only one that makes them. Actually, no longer, I guess. I guess no companies really make them anymore. You have to buy a Bluetooth keyboard or something if you want a physical keyboard now. Yeah, so BlackBerry Passport Silver Edition looks really nice, and I want to keep this for collectors' reasons. And we know that people won't be making much BlackBerry devices anymore, so yeah, for collectors' purposes, this is a really nice device, just like my Porsche Edition. And what else do we get in the box? We get, this is a manual, right, the quick start manual right here. Very nice. Then we get this, which is I think this is just some safety instructions, yeah. It's just some safety information, nothing special. So they're not liable if you sue them. Yeah, this is an adapter here. I wonder why I have an adapter here. Do you really need that? Oh, it's on tight. Okay. Anyways, I guess they have this adapter here, USB. They have a charger. It's a micro USB, of course. It's a standard. And you have headphones. Now, I don't use BlackBerry headphones, but they're there. Probably as good or better than the AirPods you get with the Apple iPhones. And that's about it. Got charger, headphones, safety info, the manual, BlackBerry Silver Edition. All right, that's it, guys. BlackBerry Silver Edition, Lenovo A588, Motorola Photon Q, Samsung D900, Alias 2, and Treo 650. And that's this batch of gadgets this time. And as always, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like these kind of videos.